right, it's 2 minutes after the hour, so you know what that means. It is time for us to get going with the Tippie Women's Summit. I want to welcome you all here. My name is Barb Thomas, and I'm going to help behind the scenes today. Our event today is titled Startup, Don't Give Up, How 3 Female Entrepreneurs Wrote Their Own Success Story. So before we dive into our topic, I do want to make sure that you're aware of several other events that are on the calendar for the Tippie Women's Summit. So we have 3 other events this month. The next is on Wednesday, March 6th. It'll be another lunchtime virtual event featuring Tippie faculty member Michelle Williams. She will speak on when no is better than yes. Negotiate for what you want while maintaining important relationships and staying sane. And then on Tuesday, March 19th, we will present another webinar featuring several Iowa business alumni. This event, Smart Money for Smart Women, and it will focus on financial strategies for life stages. Specifically, we'll be talking about early career, mid-career, and then that pre or post-retirement stage of life. And lastly, if you are in the Iowa City area, we want you to come and join us for an in-person event on Tuesday, March 26th at the Courtyard Marriott Hotel, which is at 901 West Melrose Avenue, right across from Kinnick Stadium. Now, this event will be an interactive workshop with the title, Color Yourself Happy, working with different personalities and effectively managing workplace triggers. So if you're able, please join us for a great event. Now, information on all of these webinars is available online. I will put a link into the chat so that you can register for any and all of those. And feel free to share information on these events with your friends or coworkers. So now on to today's program. We're featuring 3 amazing Iowa alumni who each have their own entrepreneurial story. Hannah Barnstable, the founder and president of 7 Sundays, wave there, Hannah, so everybody can see you. She received her BBA in finance in 2004. Donna Kruse, the CEO of Savvy Technology, received her BBA in marketing in 1986. And Erica Cole received her BA in chemistry in 2019. Now, our discussion today will be led by Kimm Harris. In addition to being an Iowa alum, Kimm is an associate professor of practice in the Tippie College of Business, where she teaches entrepreneurship. Now, I will remind you that throughout our webinar today, you can add your questions in the Q&A button that is located at the bottom. And you can share comments in the chat that will either come to the panelists or to everyone. And with that, I will turn this over to Kimm. Kimm, take it away.
Thanks, Barb. We are so thrilled to have all 3 of you here to share your stories. And to begin, what I'd like to do is ask each person to introduce themselves, tell us maybe a little bit about when you were a student here, what you studied, and then briefly describe your business before we get into our questions. So if we could start with Hannah, can you share?
Sure. Hello, everybody. Welcome. I am Hannah Barnstable, founder and CEO of 7 Sundays. I graduated from the University of Iowa in 2004. I was a finance major, which is a little strange for an entrepreneur, but I did have my entrepreneurship certificate as well. I was part of the Hawkinson Institute, really loved all aspects of business, but as an analytical person, really landed in that finance space. Through the Hawkinson program, I ended up going into investment banking and working for like a high growth middle market investment bank where I met lots of founders of businesses and worked with them to exit their business or sell it or grow it. And that's really what inspired me to finally take the leap into starting my own business.
Great. Thank you for that. Erica.
So nice to be here. My name is Erica Cole. I'm the founder and CEO of No Limbits. It's spelled Limbits. I'm an amputee, started No Limbits in college between my junior and senior year. So I was a chemistry major. I finished my chemistry degree in 2019. But my senior year, I was part of the John Papa John Entrepreneurial Center, with like Founders Club and those sorts of activities. My company makes clothing for people with disabilities. We make a lot of denim, so that's why I have these behind me. But we now serve men, women, boys, and girls in wheelchair users, people with lower limb difference, folks with limited dexterity in their hands, and people with sensory processing disorders to be able to dress more comfortably and independently.
Awesome. Thanks, Erica. And Donna.
Yes, hello, Tippie Summit attendees. My name is Donna Kruse, and I'm the CEO of Savvy Technologies. As Barb mentioned, I graduated from the University of Iowa in May of '86 with a BBA in Business Administration. I was a marketing emphasis. My senior year of college, I also worked for the University of Iowa Athletic Department in the licensing and merchandising division, which was a great job. So really, Savvy Technologies is in the business of change. And what we do is we assist our clients in assessing technology platforms that will add strategic business value. We work with all aspects of the process, from stakeholder interviews, requirements definition, vendor identification and assessment, solution evaluation, and implementation.
Great. Well, we're thrilled to hear more. We have these good questions for you. And I'm going to start with Hannah talking about 7 Sundays. So your company evolved from producing muesli, and today you've got cereal, granola as well. And on your website and your products, it talks about being upcycled. And I wondered if you could maybe describe what that means related to your products.
Sure, I'd love to. So yeah, I kind of skipped my company intro in my intro, but you nailed it. 7 Sundays makes cereals. We call them, we're coded in nostalgia and rooted in real. And where our mission is really intersects, it kind of meets at the intersection of people health and planet health. Because some of you may be aware that the food system does have a major probably on climate change and environmental concerns as well. So as a mission-driven brand, we set out to take on probably the aisle in the grocery store that maybe had the most issues, right? Like I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and we had all the sugary cereals that you still see today. And what blew my mind when I was contemplating starting this business was that in other parts of the grocery store, we were seeing change, positive change, but the cereal aisle felt like a race to the bottom, and still does a bit to this day, right? I mean, if you walk the grocery store, you see that. And so the whole premise and the whole mission behind the brand was to flip the aisle on its head. We started with muesli because of a personal love for this style of cereal. Some of you may have heard of muesli, and some of you maybe not. But if you go outside the US, that's kind of like most countries and other places don't have this big cereal aisle like we do here. And we have transformed over the last few years. So we've been around 12 years, but the last few years was when we launched into upcycled cereals. We're the first breakfast brand to create an upcycled cereal. And all that means is we're, instead of using raw virgin ingredients, we're finding production areas where there's nutrition being lost in the waste stream. So again, it's come out that reducing food waste is the #1 thing you can do to reverse climate change because of all the inputs that go into creating food. So I can share more later on about what they are, but we now have 3 different lines of cereals that are certified upcycled. So we're taking really nutrient dense ingredients and instead using those in our innovation process to make really delicious cereals.
So interesting. Yes, I just tried some cereal this last week. As a matter of fact, it's great.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's so interesting because you don't really hear about that waste as much as you do from more of a consumer waste standpoint, I guess. Well, so as a follow-on to that, 7 Sundays is a B corporation. And I wondered if you could describe for our audience what that is and maybe why you went that route, any
Yeah.
benefits or challenges with that.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of entrepreneurs, and I hate to say this, but in particular, women entrepreneurs, like we set out down this path because of a personal, desire or passion or mission. I've met so many amazing, inspirational women entrepreneurs over the years. And so that was very much my story. I really believe that the way we eat and the sugars and the high intensity sweeteners and these lab created things that are out there are not good for us, and they're not good for the ultimate, future of our planet. And so, they're about midway through, maybe about the 5-year point of starting 7 Sundays was when the B Corp or B Lab certification became available. And like, we're food, so we have every certification you can imagine, right? But the B Corporation is essentially, if I boil it down, and you can see B Corp logos on different packaging when you go to the store. But essentially what that does is within your legal documents, you are committing to putting your mission above your profit. And that looks, from the way that you treat and pay your employees to how far you're sourcing ingredients, you name it, you're kind of regulated and scored every few years. And that was important to us because we're mission-based and we knew that we were scaling and we wanted to put ourselves to the test, and we wanted a quick and easy way for the consumers to know, like, okay, this company cares. Like, there's more to the story than just putting a product out there. We're trying to change a big institutional food system so that future generations have it better than what we had as options for food.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So interesting. And we'll go on to Erica now. So Erica, you started to develop your business and you participated in a lot of different accelerators and gathered some capital. Could you describe for us that experience of participating in these different business pitch competitions and the incubators?
Absolutely. So, like I said, I was not a business major. I was a chemistry major, had no intention of starting a business until I saw the impact that adaptive clothing can have for folks. I kind of looked around. I was like, nobody else is doing this. So I'm going to go do this. And I think just like, there's such a huge gap in knowledge between where you are when you're starting your company and where you need to be in all of these different areas. And especially like none of my skills were transferable. So I had all these knowledge gaps to fill. And so I started to do accelerators. And then the other piece of it was, I was a broke college student going into this. Like I had to figure out when I was like, okay, this is going to be my career. I need to have some inventory just because of what the company was. I needed to raise some funds. And so the pitch competitions kind of helped fill knowledge gaps, and the accelerators helped fill knowledge gaps. And then a lot of them also came with some sort of financial support that we could use to build the first products. When you're not investable yet, there's kind of this valley of death between idea stage and then you're a venture backable company. And then another gap before you're a bankable company is what we're learning now. But those gaps, the accelerators helped fill those so we could at least kind of like get to the starting line. And the other thing through that is we gained a lot of mentors. And I think entrepreneurship the business landscape is changing so rapidly that there's no book that can tell you like how to do this. And if there was, your company would already exist. And so there would be no reason to start it. I have learned way more from other folks who are building in this exact same environment and mentors who have done that recently than I have from any book. And so the accelerators now, I think about, how my network grew through those programs and how that's still providing value today. And I still have someone, like, if I have a financial question, I know exactly who I'm going to go ask. And so there was a social capital aspect of these accelerators and things as well that I didn't realize at the beginning that I was building, but now I'm like, wow, that's so valuable to have. So I wish I could kind of go over, like, do that a little bit more intentionally through some of these programs.
Great information, though, as we all are in various stages, right, of just how critical that social capital is. So Excellent. Well, our next question is you appeared on Shark Tank. Many of us watched it. We're applauding and so excited that you were there. And you were successful in receiving investment from two sharks, Mark Cuban and Emma Greedy. And we'd like you to describe that Shark Tank experience and maybe how those investors have helped your business.
Yeah, Shark Tank was incredibly intense. We prepared for like 6 months beforehand. They actually saw our Kickstarter video. One of the first things that we did as a company to sell our product was launch it as a Kickstarter, as a pre-order. And so a Shark Tank producer saw our video on Kickstarter and they were like, have you ever considered being on Shark Tank? And I was like, haha, like, I'm sure y'all have gotten, as soon as you say you have a company or whatever, like people are like, oh, you should go on Shark Tank. And it was like a joke. And so then I saw this email and I was like, yeah, okay, right. And then they just kept like feeding me little tasks to do along the way. And they're telling you, they're like, hey, we just need you to do these 2 more forms. Hey, we just need you to do these 3 more forms. Hey, you should design a set. Hey, you want to write that 90-second? They did a really good job of like piecing out this process, but the amount of work that we put in, and the whole time they're like, you could be cut at any time. You can even fly out to film and not even get a chance to film if they're running behind schedule. You can go out and film and you might not air. And so it's like all of these mind games. And so we went out, we got a deal, we filmed, our episode ended up airing, our deal ended up closing, like all of the stars aligned. And I do not take that for granted for any second, because so many of these things fall apart along the way. And then I was like, I really don't feel like I'm ever going to see Mark Cuban or Emma Greed again. Like that was probably it. But they've been pretty involved in the company. I talk to Emma probably once a quarter, more often if I need to. And Mark like emails like everybody else texts. Like sometimes there's not even any copy in the body of the email. It's just whatever question he has is like the subject line of the email. Which is just any day that I get an email from Mark Cuban is like, that's what I'm doing for the rest of that day. But it's been really cool. And I think the other thing that really did for us was very publicly show that we have credibility. So we're in some really cool retail discussions right now that I don't think we would be able to have if we hadn't appeared on Shark Tank and we didn't have so publicly these investors that are familiar with large retailers on our side. Because like it's a risk for a large retailer to place an order with a small early stage company. But when you're so publicly tied to those figures that know how Walmart and Target, for example, work, then they're like, okay, they'll at least make sure that they're able to fulfill this order. There's a little bit more like credibility is probably the best word that's associated with our brand. So that's been invaluable too as part of that process.
So fascinating. I just love that I know somebody that gets an email from Mark Cuban. That is great. Well, good. We're going to go on to Donna. And you're in a technology business. And so we would like to understand a little bit more. And can you share like who your ideal customer is and maybe how you identify them?
Sure thing. So I would say that Savvy's ideal clients share about 4 characteristics, very specific characteristics. So first of all, they have between 1,000 and 5,000 employees. In the technology business, that would be kind of considered like the mid-enterprise market. Secondly, they're typically global in nature. Not every single client is global in nature, but I'd say about 85% of our clients have some kind of a global footprint. And that could range from, we have a production facility in Mexico to, we have 52 offices worldwide and 2 of them are in the United States. Third, if there's, a bell curve for technology adoption or cloud adoption, my clients, Savvy's clients are on the front end of that curve, right? So they're still they aren't entirely cloud mature, right? And they weren't typically born in the cloud, right? They're moving in that direction. And then lastly, I would say that, they're lean in terms of resources, right? So they're looking for help and they see the value of assistance from somebody who's out there doing, the type of projects that they're looking at all day, every day with a lot of other clients who, might look and feel a lot like them. And then how we identify our clients is, first of all, we're in the local market. I've been working kind of in this market segment with various large technology companies for 20 plus years. So, I just know a lot of the companies locally, right, that are part of my target market. Of course, we have a lot of relationships here going back through all of those years in the technology industry prior to launching as Savvy. And then there's a ton of tools like LinkedIn or Zoom Info, right, that can help you to identify companies that you want to work with, understand more about those companies, what they might be looking at in terms of technology projects, or actually connecting with people that are in the role that you want to meet.
Awesome.
And
And you're in Southern California, right?
I'm in San Diego.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, cool. Well, another question that's so interesting about your company is that I understand you have no employees, but yet you manage like $8 million in revenue for your customers. So tell us how that works.
Yeah, so it's a very unique and interesting business model that we're fortunate to work with, in that we're affiliated with what in our industry are called a variety of master agents. So these master agents hold contracts for resale with the hundreds of technology firms and solution providers whose services or products we represent. In addition, these master agents provide resources such as pre-sales engineering, portals with tools that we can use to quickly, help our clients assess technology fit or not based on their characteristics. They have education and certification resources on the various technologies that we represent, so that we can stay up to date, or actually, go ahead and certify on a specific technology and, demonstrate our knowledge. They have project managers that will support an implementation, and they have channel managers who, interface with myself and our firm. And then they also have resources to assure the payment of commissions. In exchange for these resources, the master agent retains a small percentage of the commissions that Savvy receives from suppliers. So that allows us to stay, just like our clients, really lean, right, while offering a very robust support team and value proposition for our customers.
Wow, a lot of valuable services to your clients then, because somebody's got to figure all that out, right? Well, great. Okay, so we're going to go back to Hannah with another question. And this is more about growth. So your product's now in Costco. And we wonder if you could just talk more about your growth strategy and how'd you get your product there, maybe the challenges and opportunities that provided you.
Sure. Yeah, there are lots of ways you can grow a business. It takes funds in a lot of cases, and right, we've been talking about venture and whether you're bankable and all of these different things. We've been around for 12 years. And I would say that our particular business started off very grassroots. The barrier to entry to food is quite low at a small scale, meaning I was mixing up cereal myself using a friend's rented commercial kitchen space, packaging it and getting it out to, 50 stores around Minnesota and testing this concept, right? So we really started grassroots with our business. We were self-funded, scrappy. And part of that was I wanted it to work. I wanted to connect with the consumer. I wanted to learn everything about the ingredients we were buying and the environmental and health impacts of those. I would say we had, sometimes people are like, oh, you started a farmer's market, you're in Costco nationwide, and it always looks so shiny and buttoned from the outside. And the reality is it wasn't shiny. It's still not shiny and buttoned on the inside at all. But we're happy with where the products have gone. And I guess what I would say to our growth strategy is it never quite followed the plan. So of course I have plans. I'm type A. I've got models. I'm finance. So I all of those things are there. But Costco is a great success story. We are launching in every single Costco with a really cool upcycled cereal that's sweetened with dates. I mean, it's super cool. It's very innovative. I'm so proud of it. But the way that we got there is not, as you might think, that it was logical and planned. It's through the community that we've built over the years and sort of, all the little pieces that go into building a brand. And it was a conversation with a friend that turned into the back of a Costco store, having a conversation with the general manager of that store, who then said, "Do you have a presentation? I'll send it here." And it was all these little pieces that, quite honestly, weren't in my plan, weren't part of the plan. But I think the idea behind growth is if you are staying true to your mission and you're really connecting to like the product and the market and how that, are you filling a void, right? Is there white space? Are you doing something different enough where there's a true need? And again, I feel like women entrepreneurs are so good at finding like the true need, like out of their own personal frustration, that I think it's pretty incredible what can happen. And it doesn't always happen overnight. It almost never does. And you might start to succeed and then fall back that way and think like that's the end. There's certainly been times over a 12-year history where I've thought, man, are we going to make it, right? But if you continue to believe and connect with the consumer and look for that true need, instead of focusing on a product, focus on where there's a disconnect, where there's a real need. I think that's how I would describe where we've come now and how we can look back and say like, this is a really cool moment. But yeah, not as shiny and buttoned and planned of a growth strategy as I think people may assume in their head when they hear that.
Thank you for sharing that about how it happened. I mean, and you had to be willing to, move forward with it. It's kind of like Erica talking, right? She got fed this and got fed this, and it's maybe going to happen, and then it's not going to happen. So you did such a nice job of describing that. Is there anything else you would tell us about working with such a large, corporation?
Yeah, I think, most entrepreneurs have the grit. And you tend to say yes, even though you don't know how, and that's kind of like, we've done that so many times, like, yes, because this aligns with our mission. This is going to get our product out in a big way. And so we absolutely did that, with this and many things in our business. Like, yeah, we'll go to Whole Foods nationwide or, whatever it might be, like Target, like, yes, let's do it. And then we'll figure it out later. But no, for us in our industry, the way we get our product out there and our mission out there is distribution through retailers. And I would say there's a lot about the food industry that's just big company, that's kind of roadblocky and, not aligned with our mission, very much about cutting corners and cutting quality and all of the ickiness. Costco has not been that story, not even close. They've been an incredible partner who is kind of agnostic about your size, and they really want to deliver to their members things that are unique, and they very much care about what we're doing, impacting the environment, right? And so for us to be able to source this product that's in Costco nationwide, the amount of food waste that we're saving from being land dropped or, into the landfill, that's really high protein and high fiber, a byproduct that we're able to save to go into these big 1 pound bags of it's our real cocoa cereal. And it's a beautiful product, and it's got a great sustainability story, but it's also delicious and good for you and has protein and, like I said, sweetened with dates. So it's all, it's a way to develop our mission. And, yeah, I think big box could have a bad reputation is what you're getting to. And as a small brand that's doing everything differently, they've been a dream to work with. And they've allowed us to push our mission forward at a scale that really no other retail could, and do things with our suppliers that, again, no other scale or retailer could. They're massive. They're the #1 organics retailer in the country. And so, it's just like, you go into a very small office and you have a conversation with real people who really care. and you're yourself and they're themselves. And next thing you know, you're moving mountains in cereal and putting things. So it's been a really cool experience. And I think maybe not what people would expect.
Well, that's great. Thanks for that additional insight into that whole process. So, Erica, let's talk about growth strategy in terms of your company. Your company is younger than Hannah's, but it's booming. And how have you attracted additional investors, customers? What's your thought and plan on that?
Yeah, we are a digital native brand. So up until just last year, all of our sales were going through our just D2C website. And really, it's like centering the folks we're trying to serve. We actually started with a Kickstarter, just kind of like what Hannah was saying, like you need to learn about that customer and you need to prove that they're there and this is a need. And so we did that on Kickstarter initially. And then we kind of took that momentum on our own D2C site. So we do a lot of like the traditional digital marketing that you would think of, but then we do some other creative things too, like we are present in a lot of prosthetic clinics and wheelchair clinics and occupational therapist office, and like where are folks thinking about this problem that they're having. And then we also engage a lot with the therapists and say, we're trying to design something that makes it easier. And it's really key that we make sure that we are designing products that lean into how someone is taught how to dress when they are paralyzed or experiencing muscle weakness, or when they have a prosthetic. How is that occupational therapist teaching them how to dress, and how can we make that process easier? And so in involving our customers in the design like loop, it's been really cool. And it's such a population that feels like they have not been heard or seen. And so we're doing a lot more now of like just customer design, customer feedback loops. We'll present some designs, be like, which ones resonate with you? And so like having now built up an audience, we get to do that. And then it just feeds into it. The other thing we were just talking before this call, we're really leaning into TikTok right now. Like digital has all transformed over the past few years. And even like we saw 14x ROAS on Facebook when we started in 2019. It was insane. And then it dropped to like 2. So we're like, okay, it's got to change. We have to keep up. Things are changing. So right now we're really leaning into TikTok. Actually, this afternoon, I'm going to do a TikTok live shopping event. And it's just reaching people where they are. And that's how we're attracting customers. I think there's something really important on the investor side that I learned recently. Another thing that I wish I knew earlier is like this investment side. There's a kind of posturing and power dynamic there that's really interesting, especially with women entrepreneurs. And I feel like a lot of early stage companies, when they go into these investor conversations, are like asking, the tone of it feels like asking for a favor, like, please believe in me, please believe in this company, like, please help me. And I would encourage you, if you're in get to that position where you're in these conversations, that's not the attitude to go into it with. I encourage you to go into it with, this is a business that I'm building. This is a real opportunity, and I am giving you the chance to be a part of it. And that shift has made investor conversations much, much different, and has actually changed the relationships that I've had with the investors post-investment. Because there's not like that power dynamic of, I helped you and now you owe me something. We are working together to bring this business to the next level. And so I just wanted to share that here, because I mentor a lot of earlier stage startups now, and that shift in mindset in some of those tricky conversations has been really powerful.
Wow, that is a positive mindset shift. And yeah, congratulations and thank you for sharing that, because I can see where it would change the dynamic, not only for the relationships, but for you personally, moving forward. Yeah, that's great. Donna, we're going to ask you some questions about artificial intelligence. I mean, can you go a day without talking about it 10 times? You know, so we have to have it on this conversation. So tell us, in your experience, your mind, what the potential impact is of AI on business. And then also, maybe you can get into how it's impacting your business and your clients' business.
Sure. So, I mean, first I would just say, how much time do we have? Because I could literally talk on this topic for the entire day and we would not even scratch the surface. Um, the answer is that AI is already impacting my business and my clients' businesses. And it's been so interesting to watch this because AI isn't necessarily new, but something happened about, 9 to 12 months ago. And I think it's, Chat GPT, right? And OpenAI, and it just burst onto everyone's consciousness, right? Like all of a sudden, everybody's like, AI, what's going on? And companies are really trying to figure it out. And I was on a trip recently. Actually, I was coming back to Iowa to talk to businesses that are in the University of Iowa's Entrepreneurial Incubator program, right? As an engineer or as an entrepreneur, and I sat next to different people on the planes, and the minute I said I was in the technology business, everybody's like, oh, AI, right? And then I came back to the university, and David Hemsley was hosting me, and we had like 10 minutes to chat, and he's like, let's talk about AI, right? And there's a lot of interest, and there's also a lot of concern and fear about what's going to happen, and is it going to replace my job and that sort of thing. So I would liken AI to a wave that is, happening out at Mavericks. And if you know what Mavericks is, it's one of those surf spots where the atolls come up from the bottom of the ocean and the waves are like 40 to 100 feet, right? So this is where the big wave surfers go. AI is a wave, and you're either going to ride it or you're going to be absolutely destroyed by it. So my suggestion would be to embrace it and to understand how it can help you, and how it can help you better understand your market, your clients, their buying preferences. And I have a great story around this. So AI is really offering us new ways to gather information, gain market intelligence, assess consumer preferences, automate software coding, measure employee productivity. I mean, these are just to name a few of the millions of ways that it's impacting the world of work. In my industry right now, AI is having an immediate impact in areas of customer experience, like agent productivity scoring, customer sentiment analysis, and more. And the goal is to really provide like real-time, actionable business intelligence. And I have a great story if we have 2 seconds to share it. So there's a company out there, they've adopted an AI-based platform for communications, right? So when their customers are contacting them via social media, right, through digital channels, if they're calling them, if they're interacting with a bot, if they're texting them, whatever they're doing, right, this solution is distilling all of that information. So anyway, one of the managers in this customer experience arena, they have like a quarterly, thing with the business leaders. And this person said, and by the way, they're a fashion boot company, right? And they only make pointy-toed boots because that's the only boot that they think is cool, okay? So this person comes into this meeting, the quarterly meeting, and he said, we really, there's a lot of customer requests and, conversations around square-toed boots. And everybody kind of poo-pooed him and said, oh, fashion companies, really, they poo-pooed him. So he said, I have these tools and I have this artificial intelligence platform, and I'm going to use it to assess how many times customers say square-toed boots. So it comes back to the next quarterly meeting, right? And he said, last time I mentioned square-toed boots, and And I wanted to just follow up on that. And he said, so I've had our artificial intelligence program tracking customer mentions of square-toed boots, 50,000 mentions this quarter. Guess what they make now? Square-toed boots. So it's really exciting, right, to be able to turn all of these interactions into data, and understand how companies can better serve their clients. And I would just say, make no mistake, AI is going to impact and disrupt every business out there. The opportunity is huge, and I really want to see women, fearlessly enter this AI space, get into the field, solve problems, create value. And, I'm already seeing women selling AI-based companies for millions of dollars. So the opportunity is huge, and we're this far into it. So as you can tell, I'm very excited about AI and what's happening there if it's used correctly.
Well, that's awesome. And thanks for sharing the story. I mean, who knows where fashion's going to go? Yay. We'll get all of our desires answered by AI.
Right, right.
Um,
Somebody's probably mentioning adaptable clothing or healthier cereal.
yes,
So,
right. So we do have a few questions that I thought would be good to answer. So one person said, thoughts on sole entrepreneurship versus partnership. Did any of you do this with a partner or as an individual? And so we can get to the other questions. Maybe one or two of you could answer that. Hannah, do you want to chime in on that?
I was thinking Donna would be a good one for this, but
Okay.
yeah, I mean, we are an LLC. I think it depends on what industry you're going into. I have a hunch both Erica and I, because we have investors and, other partners along the way, and larger teams, like a sole proprietorship for our industries, probably less relevant. So some of it just depends on the industry. As far as bringing in a partner with you, I've seen it go both ways. I would just say, take your time with that. That's a big, big, big decision to go into a business with a partner. And I would say in general, in my experience, I've seen it more on the negative than the positive is all I would say there. But yeah, I would let maybe Donna and Erica, if you want to input on this too.
Go ahead,
Sure.
Donna.
Yeah, so I am a solopreneur, and I think there's a couple things about that. First of all, I was working in an industry that I was already working in, so I was just able to port over, right, like a lot of my knowledge, even a lot of my customer relationships and that sort of thing. So it was a fairly easy transition. And there's probably some budding entrepreneurs in the audience that are working in an industry that they like and might be able to just transition to entrepreneurship, and that I have a ton of stories about that. The second thing I would say is there are so many things that are available as a service now, right? Like so the smallest company can look like the biggest company, because you can buy Microsoft licenses for one person, or you can buy Microsoft licenses for 1,000 people. You can buy a contact center solution with transcription and video and all these capabilities for one person or for 1,000 people. So the cloud has made it really democratic. And for me, I can go out and get whatever expertise I need. I can hire it on a project basis, right? So I don't do my books. Somebody else does my books. I don't build my website. I hire somebody. That's what their job, and that's what they're good at, right? I don't do my taxes. Somebody does that. So I have somebody that's right now like assisting me with my marketing and developing all of our quarterly plans and content and that sort of thing. So I want to do what I'm good at, but it's easy to go out and get that expertise from other people who are good at the things that are really not the best use of your time. So for me, being a solopreneur has been a great choice.
I want to pop in real quick
Yeah,
too.
please do, Erica.
Because I have very strong feelings about this actually. So if you look at just the data, companies that have co-founders tend to raise more money. They tend to have a better growth trajectory. The flip side of that coin is over half of early stage startups fail because of co-founder disagreements. So it's like take and give and take, and there are pros and cons for sure. But no matter what you decide, make sure people are being vested in. So like write your prenup before formalizing any sort of co-founder arrangements, because there's going to be one co-founder that works harder than the other in every single startup I've seen it. And the ones that succeed are the ones who like planned for that in advance. So just like make sure all expectations are on the table, because it can really bring a startup down if you don't do that like kind of uncomfortable work in the beginning.
Thank you for that. Okay, we have another question here. I'm sure you've had some rejections along the way before it all clicked into place. How did you handle rejection or people who just didn't get your product or service? And what advice would you give those who may have the desire to start their own business, but are paralyzed by this fear of rejection?
I can start again with that one because we've had our fair share of rejection, even starting with, everyone has that moment where they decide they're ready to take the leap, or you think you're ready. I mean, for me, it wasn't like absolutely certain, but I just did it. And you have like someone close to you says, "You think that's a good idea? You sure about that? Like you're doing pretty good over here." So, first of all, my advice on this is you will have rejection. I mean, you will have rejection and you've got to be able to take it. And it's hard, but if you can't take it, then it's going to be really hard being an entrepreneur. Because when you are innovative and you're doing something different and new, you are going to bump up against the hurdles. And you should take that as, a stamp or a show that you are on the right track, because there is resistance when there's change. And so in some ways, I look at the most innovative things we've done have been the most challenging because, people don't want the change. The change is hard. They don't get it. That being said, you do need to listen to the rejection. And the way that I think about that is some people go into a business saying, well, I'm starting a business based on an idea, or I'm starting a business based on a product. And what I would suggest is really go a little bit deeper and start a business based on a personal passion or mission, and know that your product or service will shift, if that makes sense. So sometimes entrepreneurs get so tied into a product or service and they're getting rejection and they're like, maybe this was all a bad idea. When the reality is you almost certainly started a business based on something deeper than that, a passion, a mission. It's something you were seeing that was disconnected, an opportunity. So going back to my story and this very first question you asked about starting as muesli and now having cereals, like we've had to pivot a lot. Our mission has not moved at all, but our products have. And so I guess it's two-part, right? Like rejection will happen and it's because you're being innovative, and that's okay. But you also should be taking that feedback and thinking like, does this mean I need to pivot? So that would be my take on that topic.
All right. Erica, Donna, did you have anything you'd like to add?
Sure. I mean, I guess I would say, and this is actually some of my word of wisdom advice, but I mean, if you really want something, you can have it. If you really want something and your motivation is right, you can have it. But, I remember someone talking about, oh, I'm so passionate, I want to do this thing and blah, blah, blah. And, oh, but I don't want people to think I'm obnoxious or I'm pushy. I said, are you more, or do you really want this thing or this passion, or are you more concerned with perception, right? Because, I mean, I have to tell you, especially as a woman entrepreneur, characteristics that are seen as desirable in men are sometimes seen as undesirable in women. And they might be leaders and we might be pushy, and they might be assertive and we might be aggressive. It's the exact same behavior. It's just in a girl suit. So, be willing to, like Hannah said, be passionate enough about what the change that you're trying to make or the thing that you're trying to get out in the world, like Erica's, adaptive clothing, etc., or Hannah's cereal, to say, I'm doing this. The world needs this, and I'm doing it. And learn from the rejection, but don't let it stop you.
Yeah, I think like just to tack onto that, I think asking why, when there's an opportunity, asking why at the end of every rejection is really powerful. The like most intense periods of rejection I've experienced have been while fundraising. We've raised 2 rounds, and like it's brutal. It's over and over again, people telling you no. But if you're like, all right, but tell me why are you saying no? And folks are, if you're pushing them and you're like, hey, this is so valuable, this feedback for me is so valuable. Can you tell me why you said no? Then I was able to, my pitch deck looks way different than like they tell you to have your pitch deck. That's because people hear adaptive and they're like, oh, that market's way too small. So I was getting no. And I'm like, well, why? And people were like, we think the market's too small. So my market sizing slide is now my second slide. So I can overcome that no in future conversations, but I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't asked why. And the other thing is sometimes the no's a blessing, because like there are people who've wasted so much of my time to get to a no, like 6 months to the no. Sometimes like if I pitch someone and they're like, you know what, not for us, I'm like, thank you for not wasting more of my time. Anyway.
No, that's such great insights into all of those areas. So I think we're about ready to go to our final question, which is, can you give us some final thoughts and share a few words of wisdom for our audience? And Hannah, I think I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think I was able to touch on some of my key things in the rejection and focusing on mission, but I will say, just would encourage everyone to pave your own road, and be yourself and go confidently. So much of the themes in all this discussion we've had this past hour, I think kind of tie back to like, you're going to know best, and you don't need to sort of, sometimes no is the best, and lean into the people who are supporting you. And the way that I go about that and everything I do is, am I too much focused on the external and not just focused on doing this my own way? I think it's scary to be an entrepreneur. And in my earlier entrepreneurial years, I very often would question my decisions because other people weren't doing it that way. And sometimes I was totally misguided because I'm like, well, this one did it this way, I'm going to just shift over here now. And we made a lot of mistakes doing that. And so one of the beauties of entrepreneurship, but I think it extends beyond entrepreneurship. If you're building a career, building a family, I mean, you can take this any way. Pave your own road, stay true to yourself, things will work out. And the distractions, they're distractions, and it's uncomfortable to pave your own road, but it's ultimately going to be the most rewarding.
All right. And Donna, would you like to go next?
Sure. So, and I think this advice is true. I know it's true, whether you're, in a career in corporate America or you're an entrepreneur. And that is, if there's one characteristic that you can cultivate, let that characteristic be tenacity, or I think Hannah used the word grit. That is the ability to self-motivate and to tirelessly pursue what you want is a key to success. I remember when I started my technology career back in Iowa, by the way, in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, working for a company called AT&T at the time. And I don't know if anybody in this call knows of a gentleman by the name of Clark McLeod, but he founded his big telecommunications company in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, right? So I remember when I took the job, I took over for a young woman who was struggling, and she said, "You're never going to be able to succeed here." She said, "This is Clark McLeod's backyard. Everybody knows him. Everybody loves him. Da 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 da. I've only ever been able to, operate at like 40% of my objective." And I thought, oh, watch me. I mean, I didn't take that as discouragement. I took that as somebody throwing down the gauntlet, and I'm absolutely picking it up. So I said, okay, that's what I'm up against. Here's this guy, and he has jobs, and Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and everybody knows his name, blah blah blah. But everybody also knows AT&T's name. So I thought, I'm going to find out what's the magic formula. People want to see people working for AT&T. There's thousands of people working for AT&T all over the state of Iowa and the Midwest. And so I just did my research and I figured it all out. We're an American company. We manufacture things here and this and that. And I had my pitch and it was like magic. I mean, I ended the first year at 180% of my objective in a territory where everybody said it couldn't be done. So, if you want something and you believe it and you focus on it, you will find a way to make it happen.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Erica, what are your words of wisdom?
Yeah, I had two things that came to mind. One is focus on selling first and then build the business around your sales. I think like at the beginning, I was like, oh, this is gonna be my career, this is gonna be my business. And so I tried to add all this formality in when I should have been putting all of that time into just selling the product and then figure out the scale later. You're like, oh, what's going to happen when my distribution gets to this level and I can't fulfill all these orders on my own anymore? Like, wait until you are packing orders 24 hours a day and then figured out that problem. Don't waste time and energy on any of that scale stuff until you're selling and you're really at a breaking point because you can't sell anymore because this other thing is holding you back. That's the first. And then the second is like at the very, very beginning, I was like kind of embarrassed to like say that I was doing this business. Like I wanted it to feel real before I like announced it to people. And it still doesn't feel real. So the more you say it, the more you're like, I have this business. You could be like, I'm going to start a cupcake company. In 2 minutes from now, you could decide I'm going to start a cupcake company. And I encourage in that minute, be like, I'm starting a cupcake company and tell your friends and everybody that you know. And that helps it become more real. And the more that you say it, the more accountable you're held to this idea. And then the realness comes later. It doesn't go the other way.
Oh, amazing. I just want you all to know that you've really given a lot of great insight into your experiences, your success, well, in life. I mean, because that's really what you all were talking about. And I'm sure there's been a lot of people inspired and will be inspired by what you shared. And Barb, I think we've got a few other ideas for additional webinars in the future.
I think so. I think one of the things I love about this webinar is watching each of you react to something the other says. Erica says something and Hannah is like, oh yeah, sister, like you nailed that. So just watching it, I just really want to thank you all for participating, Kimm for leading the session, to our panelists for their time today. A reminder to everyone that there are still more events as a part of the Tippie Women's Summit, and that our webinar has been recorded. And so we will be sending an email out to you that will have a recording so that you can see it at a later date or share it with your friends. In addition, once we close, a short survey will pop up in your browser. We would appreciate it if you would just take a few minutes and answer a few quick questions for us, especially on how we can improve these webinars and if you have ideas for other topics. So on behalf of the Tippie College and our panelists and our moderator, Kimm, I want to thank you all for joining us today. And as always, go Hawks. Thanks, everyone.